Your opening statements, Dr. Rohanyo, you said that we are having 27 amendments in just less than 5 years. But this constitution was a product of a political negotiation, political settlement, some have said. In fact, Honorable Priscilla Misia Irambu said the issues that are being amended, most of them were contentious issues during the negotiation of the constitution under COPA, and they are just making them right now. They're just making them right. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would agree with it, but I have a problem. The problem I have is that we are discussing the wrong question. What is the question? Is the constitution the problem? Let me give you a synopsis of the Zimbabwe question from 1890, when the pioneer column came to Zimbabwe in 1890, and we had the Anglo-Ndebele War 1890 to 1893. What was the question? What was the problem at that historic moment? The question at that historic moment was the question of land disposition. After the pioneer column came, then we had the 1896, 1897 Anglo-Ndebele War. What was the problem? Why did those people rise against the British colonial settlement? What was the Ndebele Shona uprising about? It was about land disposition, and that was the question. You come to the 1960s, we had a colonial question, and the question was the independence question. Those who went to war, who went to Mozambique, to Zambia, they wanted to liberate the country. That was the question at that moment. You come to 1980, independence. What was the question? Was to develop the state, to democratize, to make health, social services, access to the people. You come to the 1990s, the democratization question comes in. So at this historic moment, what is the Zimbabwe question? It is not about the constitution. It is not even about the laws. But the Zimbabwe question, as it stands now, is a dual political and economic question happening simultaneously at the same time. We have the informalization of the economy, and one of the key questions is the question of livelihoods. How do people access food? How do people access health? Is the government of Mnangagwa and other political actors in opposition addressing the question of livelihoods? Having food on the table, access to medicine, access to education, access to health. That is the question we face. But we also have a governance question of a state that has gone rogue. What has that to do with the constitution? Does the constitution allow you to abduct people? Does the constitution allow the state to torture people? Does the state, the constitution, the current constitution allow lawlessness? Is this a government of laws? The one we have. So what's this nonsense about the constitutional amendment? As if the constitution is the problem. We have the corruption and the decomposition of the political, as seen by how ZANU is running the affairs of the state. That is the question. The abductions, the violence, I think she's a victim of that violence. Which law says that she must be abducted and she must be incarcerated? Which law is that says that? Like she says, the law we have, the constitution we have is good enough if we don't have human factor decay. We have human factor decay in those who run the affairs of the state, and that is what we need to attend to. The political question and the socio-economic question to do with the livelihoods of people. Access to food, access to clean water, access to health. I am a doctor, but I cannot even afford a holiday to go to Nyanga here in Zimbabwe. These are basic issues that people want. So it has nothing to do with the law. So let's not miss the point that the constitution is the problem. It is not the problem. The problem is the corruption and the decomposition of the political, which needs to be resolved.
Would you, at this point, say if we are going to have a constitutional amendment, would you suggest anything, any part of the constitution that you would want to see amended right now to answer the problems that you're talking about?
Is to destroy the imperial presidents that we have. We have an imperial president that has created native imperialism in this country. And that native imperialism created by the imperial president, the presidents of this country, the presidents as an office is not answerable to anybody. It is not answerable to Parliament. It is not even answerable allegedly by the people that elected. It is answerable to the families of those people. The president doesn't even go to Parliament to account, as we see in other jurisdictions like South Africa. Where does President Mnangagwa, for instance, answer to? How does he answer to the people? If he says he's elected by the people, how does he answer to the people? In fact, he leads a government that attacks the shareholders. It's like you have a company which has directors, shareholders, and you have the directors of a company firing the shareholders of a company. That is what ZANU-PF and its leadership are doing. We are the shareholders of Zimbabwe. But what does he do to us, the shareholders? The ones who own Zimbabwe. You and me and every citizen own this country. But we are subjected to torture, we are subjected to abductions. We run away from our families during the night because we fear to be abducted. Something that happened during Rhodesia. So this government is returning Rhodesia. It is even worse than Mugabe, because under Mugabe we had never had this kind of fear, this kind of terror in this country. And this is the question that needs to be addressed by Mnangagwa, not the constitutional amendment. It is not the constitution that is the problem. It is ZANU. And all of us together, you and me, who are problematic because we are not addressing the quick questions of the day.
Maybe if I can come in, just to agree with Dr. Ruane, that what is the question and why now? Why should we be amending the Constitution now? I would want to say, even to my sister Namatai, that there is nothing wrong with amending the Constitution. The Constitution as it is, as it was passed, it gives room for how a Constitution is to be amended. And we have ZANU-PF, it has 2/3 majority, which means that it is able to amend the Constitution. But what I would want to say is it prudent for ZANU-PF to be seeking to amend the Constitution right now? And that is where the question comes. Is it the question? Is it a problem? Is there a problem? Or is it the problem that ZANU-PF as a government in power should be addressing at this current moment? The previous constitution was amended 18 times over a span of about 30 years. But we have a vast amount of amendments which are being proposed at this current stage. And I think for me, it's a diversion and it's a misplacement of priorities on the part of the ruling party. And I think it further buttresses the fact that the ruling party missed a golden opportunity somehow, because there was so much goodwill in 2017. There was so much goodwill, so many people were willing to work with ZANU-PF in spite of what had happened in the past. I would beg to disagree with Dr. Ruane that Mugabe was better. There were so many things which happened under Mugabe which, we wouldn't even be able to speak. 2008, the elections were mired in violence, killings, fear. It was terrible. But 2017, people were willing to forgo all that and forget ZANU-PF's hand in all that and move forward as a nation. So what is the ruling party seized with? It's supposed to reach out to the shareholder, like Dr. Ruane said. The owners of the country are the citizens, and they derive their power from the citizens. And once you start ostracizing or alienating the people you're supposed to be leading, then you lose a golden opportunity to bring people together in unity. Because I feel that the problems that we are facing, it is easier to address those problems when people are united and focused on one vision. But it seems that ZANU-PF has gone back to default setting, which is consolidation of power. Power and more power, retention of power, how to get power, how to retain it, how to keep it forever and ever. ZANU-PF is good at that. But 2017, I felt was more about addressing the needs of the people, reuniting ZANU-PF with the people, with its supporters. And at that stage, there was a lot of goodwill. There was a lot of goodwill on the part of people, and ZANU had that opportunity to get even more supporters on board. But it has somehow missed that opportunity and made it all about itself, keeping power, consolidating power, retaining it, keeping everyone else outside. But that is not what we need right now as a nation.
So Namatai, coming to you, Dr. Rania noted that you're a victim of state repression. You've been arrested for speaking out, for saying the constitution should not be touched. In your one-man demonstration, I don't know how you violated lockdown regulations when you were by yourself, but do you feel safe under the state? Do you feel safe even when you see these constitutional amendments being pushed down, even as you said in your submissions, that the people who, even though a smaller number, but still resisted it?
Okay, right, great question. All right, so I just wanted maybe just share with you, I like how he said, sometimes people are not sleeping in their houses because you're afraid that in the middle of the night, something horrible can happen. Before this particular experience, when I saw policemen and women passing by, I was completely desensitized to their presence. But I remember post my second arrest, when I was actually walking home and I saw a police truck in my neighborhood. I froze. I literally froze and I said, what are they doing here? So later on I noticed that it had a learner's sign. So these were just basically police teaching each other to drive in our neighborhood. I said, well, drive. Because you literally live in fear. When you see police, when you see soldiers, when I'm approaching a roadblock, for instance, you literally live in fear. Notwithstanding that when you're walking in the road, you're like, looking back, who's looking at me, who's following me, what's happening. And I'm 21. And when I share some of these experiences, and you learn that people in 2000 I was about a year old, they were experiencing that. In 1998, 1997, when people were having those food riots and stuff, they were experiencing that. These things have been there since before I was born. And it's a clear indication that if we are still having to experience that, something hasn't changed over such a long period of time. So in all honesty, I'll tell you that I don't feel safe. But now I want to just bring it back. Like, let's stop talking about all this legal procedure or whatever, but just talk about this as human beings, and particularly as Zimbabweans and as young people in this country. We must get to a point where we appreciate that when injustice is being legalized and we are watching, it might not pounce on you today, but in the next 5, 10, 20 years, you're going to pay for that. We can't be a generation of people who keep quiet when important things like this are happening. Because basically, the president wants to legalize abusing you and you're not questioning him. This is what this constitution is about. And we have to be in a position where we stand together, we rally together as a generation. Because I believe that one of the key things in our generational mandate is building strong institutions. Constitutions are part of that. You know what I mean? So now, having said that, I want to just make it very clear that we as the young people of this country, we have the longest to be governed under this constitution. And when these amendments are made and they pass through, you will realize that even if we don't like what has been put there, it's difficult to reverse it because we have to go through this process again. And now that is determined by the government of the day, by the people who actually have the power at that particular moment. So I just want to say that young people have to be willing to defend everything that has to do with their particular country and everything that has to do with preserving and protecting their future. And this is a great entry point in the context of being able to rally together for something.
Some argue that young people are paid to do this, are paid to oppose the government, they're paid to speak up. Now, can you address that? Because I saw you addressing it sometime on your social media page.
Absolutely, yeah. And okay, so let me just finish what I was just saying. I really appreciated what Julius Malema said yesterday. This whole idea of, he said you're already dead. And people don't want to participate. They don't want to show up. The government should not be comfortable. You understand? The fear we live in on a daily basis is what they should be going through, because people are not happy. So we need that kind of agency to say we need to defend our future, because it's not just about today, it's about our future. In the context of these people who say when they see people who are outspoken and whatever, you're being paid, you're being sponsored. I think that's a very primitive narrative that is peddled by the state. In the context that they want to demonize everyone to look like they're on a payroll of a foreign country. And like I was saying, when we went out to the streets, even the dispo at Arrest Central, when he arrested us, he said that you were not even organized. Your placards even have spelling errors and they're not even nice. And I said, well, yeah, because I just took material from my own household. And we said, no, we're going to deal with this issue like citizens, Right. But you get to the police and they're asking you, no, we want your bank account details, we want this, we want that. Like I always say, that is a narrative that the state will always try to peddle. And right now I'm happy. They can look. They can go through my EcoCash, through my bank accounts, but they won't find anything. And this is what I'm telling young people. When people come to you and they say, Namatai has the energy to do this because she's being paid by so and so, tell them to bring the receipts. Let them come with receipts to say I was paid by so and so. If they don't have receipts, they should shut their mouth and let young people participate. Because we can't be letting people get away with such narratives. We have to be the generation of people that say chawe chawe. You know what I mean? And we have to just say to ourselves that when things like this are happening, we stand in our truth and we are able to just speak our truth consistently, and we let them know, no, you can't be taking us for a ride, because we can't have the next 40 years. I don't want to give birth to my kids and they have to go through what I'm going through. I was talking to some Zimbabweans in the diaspora and they say, we feel sorry for you. Because you're 21, you should be worried about going to school, who you're dating, your nails. But I don't worry about any of that. I came here looking like a hag because I don't think about how I look. I'm always thinking about what's next, what about tomorrow. So all the young people must be in a position where they say, you know what, whether you call us paid, sponsored, whatever, we don't care.
Maybe if I may address the issue of that perspective that there are people who are getting paid. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's just something that is directed at those who are anti-government, but I think it's also directed at those who are pro-government. I think it's a thing. People will call me Amrakachi, you are getting paid to support the government. Mm-hmm. But let me be honest, no one pays me. I've never been paid anything by anybody. Mm-hmm. It's just that, like everybody else in 2017, we thought, oh, this is a new leaf. President Mugabe is gone. We have somebody new. Like for me, I just grew up knowing one president, and it was just a marvel to have a new president for once. And I believe that it was an opportunity to unite people. But people are now more polarized than ever before. And then you get these accusations that, no, you are being paid. Because nobody thinks that anybody is thinking and talking for themselves and for what they, standing for what they believe in. And it's rather unfortunate on the part of our leaders. They had an opportunity in 2017 to unite people, to say, okay, we don't have to be always in perpetual election mode. We have to be working as a nation. She has to be worried about university. I have to be worried about making money. We want to make money, we want to go on holidays, we want to just have a decent standard of living. We are not getting that.
But instead we're changing the
No, but that issue of payment must be dismissed.
Yes.
The conduct it deserves. Who paid Tongogara to go to the armed struggle?
Thank you.
Who paid Mugabe? Who paid the current president to go to Egypt for training? He went to Egypt for training. He went to China for training. Mm-hmm. Who paid him? Who paid his ticket? He must also tell us who paid him. If he was paid to do a legitimate cause, what is wrong with that? If a Zimbabwean in London he pays me to buy data to so that to tweet, yeah. What is wrong with that? What is wrong is to be paid to attempt to overthrow a government. We are not paid to overthrow a government. We don't want to overthrow a government. We want our government to be accountable. We want our government to uphold the constitution. We are not mercenaries. Tongogara was not a mercenary. Mangena was not a mercenary. Ngomo was not a mercenary. Including this president, they were not mercenaries. They were paid for legitimate causes. Who bought the boots, the clothes that they were wearing during the struggle? Some came from Russia, from China, from Sweden. And what was wrong with that? If Zimbabwe is in the diaspora, give us resources to fight for causes, democratically, peacefully, lawfully, constitutionally. What is wrong with that? I'm not going to apologize to that kind of nonsense. It's hogwash. If you are paid to do the right, we have to look at the legitimacy of that payment. We are never paid to undermine the government, to undermine the state, to overthrow the government. We don't do that. We are very smart. We know what is lawful, what is unlawful, what is democratic, what is undemocratic. And everything that we do is purely lawful, legal, constitutional, and democratic. So we must not apologize that people are being paid, because they are also paid by the Chinese. We see them getting donations from China. We see them, their t-shirts coming from China. A lot of support from China. So ZANU-PF is the only one that must have the monopoly of being supported. And if someone is supported, therefore I sell out comrades. We cannot accept that kind of tomfoolery. That is unacceptable.
let me. You were a journalist, Dr. Ranya. I want us to look at the role that the media is playing in conscientizing people on this constitutional amendment bill number 2. Is it playing that role effectively?
That is not the question. So they are not playing the role effectively because that is not the question. There are other fundamental issues that are taking place in this country. And one of the key questions of all this is the question of livelihood. How do people survive? Even the journalist himself, how does he survive? How does that journalist come to work? How does that journalist pay fees for his or her children? How do these journalists access health facilities,
Absolutely.
education? These are the key questions. So the question of the constitution, yes, it's a key issue, but it is a subplot. In the face of abductions, in the face of torture, a Greg has colossal human rights violations, and we want to talk about a constitution that we clearly see that it is trying to create an imperial precedence, to create native imperialism under a system that overthrew a pathetic system. But I wanted to answer one question about Mugabe and Mnangagwa. I'm not saying that Mugabe was good, we all know. But anyone who succeeded Mugabe, even if I was to succeed Mugabe, I was not supposed to fail. Because Mugabe was a mountain of failure. So any idiot, including anybody who succeeded Mugabe, was supposed to be doing much better because it was easy. So the comparison I'm making is a comparison of two bad leaders. Say who is a better bad leader? Not that somebody is. But if you look at the Constitutional Amendment, let's take the Constitutional Amendment. Mugabe amended the Constitution, I think 19 times. In 37 years. This one is attempting to amend the Constitution. He is less than 3 years in power. But he's making 27 amendments at one go. So who's better? I'm not saying this one is good. You also say the killings that happened. These were the enablers. The enablers of Mugabe regime are in power today. That's why there's no change of system. That's why we have repetition without change. What we have in Zimbabwe is not a new dispensation. There's no open for business. It is repetition without change, without changing the systems of government, without changing the constitutional architecture in terms of democratizing it, but actually trying to consolidate. We are in what I could term authoritarian consolidation rather than democratic consolidation. We are not consolidating democracy. If we were consolidating democracy, like what she was saying, the lawyer was saying, we could have been aligning the laws to the constitution. But instead, we are trying to erode consolidating power. Authoritarian consolidation. We are in democratic recession.
But you can openly speak and we can openly broadcast what you are saying without problems. I mean, is this not freedom?
There is no freedom after expression. After leaving this building, you may read that Rwanda has been arrested. And even under Mugabe, we used to do these things. So we cannot say because we have spoken. Therefore, the rights of men do not come from the generosity of the state, but they come from the hand of God. We cannot take the state as God or as a higher authority. No. These people are supposed to be accountable to us. If they say they are elected by the people, they must be answerable to the people. You cannot say when the people speak, then you run after them, you torture them, you abduct them, and say that you are governing properly. No. They are actually violating the very constitution that they are trying to amend.
Maybe if I may come in to talk about the issue of the institutions and whatever. I would want to say that we have very good pieces of legislation that exists. We have the Public Entities Corporate Governance Act, we have the Procurement Act. Those are meant to encourage a sort of transparency and accountability, even the Constitution. But I'm afraid all those documents will not amount to anything if there is the level of non-compliance that we are experiencing right now. She is an anti-constitutional amendment activist. She is well within her rights to say, I do not feel comfortable with the amendments that are taking place. There is no need for her to be arrested or harassed or anything for expressing herself, because the procedure is provided for. There has to be public consultations. What is the use of public consultations if you are then followed up and harassed for expressing yourself? So some of these things that are taking place, Blessed, I want to say, it goes further to the ruling party squandering the opportunity that they had in 2017 to create strong institutions which are not susceptible to abuse. Because when you get, we know you can be arrested for breaking the law, or on suspicion or reasonable suspicion that you've broken the law. But sometimes, is it necessary? Is it necessary to arrest someone for saying, I don't agree with the constitutional amendments that you're proposing? Is it necessary to arrest someone for disagreeing with government or for disagreeing with government policies? It is not. And coming from that backdrop, I think this is not the right time to be talking about constitutional amendment. We should be talking about compliance with the laws that are currently in place, and aligning the laws that are currently in place to this constitution.
Absolutely.
Namatai, what's in it for the people on this amendment? On these proposed amendments, what's in it for the people?
Honestly, I would actually say nothing. Yeah, I would actually say nothing. It might sound radical, but it's my truth and I want to speak it. From youth who constitute the greater demographic in this country, and women as well who constitute the greater demographic in this country, this constitution tokenizes them. You're being given 10 seats, it's a gift. Oh, 10 seats, there you go, young people. But we constitute about 70% of the overall population in this country. And the real issue, I like how he talked about, we need to talk about the real issue. The real issue in this context is not giving young people 10 seats. The real issue comes in electoral reform. We need to have youth-friendly electoral reforms, because one of the reasons why young people consistently are showing up last in elections is because the whole electoral system in itself has been designed agained young people. There was no consultation of young people in that electoral system.
But
the same thing we see
But if you had an opportunity to be going to university to get a good job after school, would you want to be sitting in parliament haggling as a young person?
Okay, so let me just finish in the context of what I was saying, with what do people have to benefit. And I'm speaking in alignment particularly with youth and with women, because they constitute the greater demographic. There is very little, absolutely very little, for people to be saying that this is anything to get excited about. And this is irregardless of your political affiliation, because people might not understand this now, but regardless of your political affiliation, these amendments will make us suffer in the future. So it's very, very important for young people to rally together and be in a position where we ask ourselves, what do we have to benefit from this? And there are other legislative alternatives to amending the Constitution. Like I was saying, you need to look into the electoral reforms. You understand? You need to look at having a youth act, which is currently not there. So these are legislative alternatives to actually amending the Constitution. But in the context of what do people have to benefit, absolutely nothing. If it's not helping you get food on the table, if it's not helping you get medical care, if it's not helping you live a decent life, there is nothing to benefit from this. So that's done. Coming on to your question about if we had this, if we had that. I personally believe that when people have been educated enough in the context of their civil rights, regardless of what you have or what you do not have, I personally would actually say that young people would still have to participate in these processes, because we missed it when we have now people that we say, no, it's their business, we'll just be doing that. We all as citizens have to be engaged and to actively, divulge ourselves in these issues so that we know what is being done and we know the decisions that are being made, because whatever decision is being made in Parliament comes back to affect us. And that has been the biggest problem, apathy, with just disinterest or maybe fear of participating in these things. It is our business. What happens in Parliament is our business as people. And that would never change regardless of what we have or what we do not have.
Mm-hmm. You also spoke about the young people not participating. What can be done to make sure that they participate? Because number one, most of these young people don't even want to register to vote. And like Julius Malema was saying the other day, they all want to come and get T-shirts. They don't want to participate. If you don't give them T-shirt, it's a problem. But when the real laws that affect their future are being made, they are not there.
Absolutely. Okay, so I just think that it's a multitude of factors and I can't just, answer it in just one way, in a linear way. But what I can say is that sometimes the systematic exclusion of young people from participating is actually a reality. There are systems that have been put in place that mirror youth participation. He was talking about the issues of abductions, torture, pretty much manufacturing fear. How do young people participate when they know after doing this, this will happen, The other issue now, it also falls on the aspect of youth themselves. I had a conversation, I think it was a very interesting conversation with Dr. Nkosana Moyo, and he told me that it's important for people to be brave and smart. He said that if you are just brave and you're not smart, you are a mercenary for hire, you're a foot soldier. You can be used by anybody. So you have to be brave and you have to be smart. But if you're smart and you're not brave, as is the situation in our country, you've got a lot of smart people, but they will tell you, no, I'm too clean for me to be seen doing this, or for me to be getting in harm's way for this. And that has been the problem. So I liked how Julius Malema put it when he said that we are already dead. So this whole idea of people thinking that they have something to lose, I see some of these people, they see me running around, young people like myself. They tell me, Namatai, why don't you just get into business, drop this, in the next 5 years, Zanu would have ruined your life, you have absolutely nothing, you have whatever. And I'm telling you, listen, you in the next 5 years, because of the governance in this country, your business will never kickstart. You'll always be a startup for the rest of your life, and you'll never make enough money.
So we have farmer for 30 years.
Absolutely. So I want people to actually find the intricate connections in all of this, to then say that we need freedom fighters if there is no freedom. We have to understand that what supplies, a particular generation, because I would not be an anti-constitutional amendment activist if there was no constitutional amendments. Whenever there are human rights violations, we need human rights activists, because you are able to respond to the current situation and to solve those problems. So like I always say in this particular context, this whole rubbish of people saying, no, these people, like I liked how he put it across, no, these people are getting paid and whatever, that has to stop. And people have to be in a position where they understand, Kuti, we will never have a good Zimbabwe until people start showing up like that, until people are brave. You can't just be smart in a co-working space, typing your laptop and doing graphic designing, but it's not in any way feeding into the future of your country. You can't say you're smart, and some of them are now money changers. Some of them are now doing all kinds of rubbish, you know what I mean? And these things are eroding our economy. Some of them are now being used by political elites because they'll say, no, but I have to be a money changer, I'll go get money at RBZ. But why can't you just fight? Because you can't sustain that. In the next 20, 30, 40 years, your children will have absolutely nothing, and you are to blame. You are to blame. We have to look at ourselves and say we are the problem.
Wikiti yakati unofanira kumbotry kuitira kuti mwana wako akazobvunza kuti mai vepi ndaitry.
But you must also understand, for instance, the first black lawyer of this country. When it was not easy to find yourself in those, led what was called Darere Chimurenga, executing the liberation struggle. That was these are the ideas of Chitepo. Even naming this country, that when Zimbabwe became independent, we call it Zimbabwe. He set up a committee of people who went to do studies and to come up with this name. He was a lawyer who could have been practicing in New York, Manhattan, all over, but he chose to forgo his legal practice, where he could be any good man. But it was not only Chitepo. We also had the first black medical doctor in Parenya, who was the vice president of ZAP, who had to forgo their medical practice, which was very rich by then, to be involved in the struggle for Zimbabwe. Brilliant lawyers like Edson Shopo, Edson Stole, and many other educationists. You look at the likes of Rugare Gumbo. Are you aware that Rugare Gumbo is a very fine mind? And by then, Rugare Gumbo had a double masters from the University of Massachusetts in the US, but he was fighting in the struggle. Absolutely. Mugabe had a fine mind, with all our disagreements with him, which is the major difference between the Mugabe class and this group. This group that is in power in ZANU-PF is a ruling class without ruling ideas. And each time they are provoked, they use coercion. For a hegemony to be sustained, it must be a result of consent and coercion. But these ones, a difference with them, they go to the barrack. They unleash violence on you.
Yeah, as you deal with that, I also want you to deal with what is in it for the people in this.
There's nothing that is in it for the people. What is in it for the people is to stand up legitimately, lawfully, peacefully, and speak to their government.
Absolutely.
And say, the way you are proceeding is not the right way. And in these struggles, I want to emphasize this point, in these struggles, people must never be seduced into violence. Because the arena of violence is not a competent arena for any other person apart from the state and its army. To be involved in violence is a trap. To preach violence is a trap. Because the democratic struggle we talk about is a democratic struggle that has norms and values. So you cannot say you are democratic, you cannot say you are constitutionalist when you violate the very same constitution, when you violate the rights of others. So you must be involved in peaceful, democratic, lawful, constitutional resistance without attempting to be violent or without saying, I want to overthrow the government. The moment you say that, you are falling into a trap that you may not find yourself out. Preach peace, preach non-violence, preach democracy, preach observance of human rights. Non-violence, direct confrontation.
Mao Zedong said sometimes peace comes from the barrel of the gun.
Yeah, but that was the period then. The struggle we face today, it does not require guns. The struggle we face today requires brain. And this is where ZANU-PF is missing it. We are not in the 60s. We fought against colonial rule, against white settlerism. And that was then, we as Zimbabweans together, ZANU, MDC, Ndonga, there is no need for war. There is no need for an armed struggle. There is need for an armed struggle of ideas. There is need for contestation of ideas. There is no need for an armed struggle or fighting people or killing people. We must kill each other at the level of ideas. Ideas run the world. The period of the gun in this country was done. That was the period of Chitepo, the period of Ngomo, the period of Mangena, look out Masuku. Our period today is a democratic struggle premised on the values that are enshrined in our constitution. Any other way is a trap, which is very dangerous.
Yeah. Let's preach peace. Let's preach peace. Let us deal with the ideas of the brain. That is the message coming from Dr. Ruhanya. But I'll give you an opportunity coming from here. If she finishes, you follow, and you follow just in closing to speak from your heart and make your case to the people of Zimbabwe.
All right. I just want to say that the constitutional amendment is absolutely unnecessary at this stage. What we should be looking at is how do we build the country going forward. And I think that focusing on consolidation of power is not what we should be doing. And also I would want to urge the party in power to not further alienate itself from the people that it is governing by crushing dissent crushing dissent in a merciless way to say we don't want anyone who opposes. Rather take this process, this constitutional amendment process, as an opportunity to hear from people genuinely what the people feel about the process, what the people feel about the amendments, about the content of the amendments, and take that into consideration. Because this is the expectation that people heard in 2017 when the new dispensation was ushered in. People felt that we are now free. We can now engage. We can now do battle of the minds, battle of ideas, and exchange ideas and build the nation. So when the people are saying, no, we are against this, this is an opportunity to listen to them and take that into consideration instead of further alienating yourself from the people who voted for you to govern them.
Absolutely, yeah. I think what I'll just say is that young people in particular, we have to be brave. We have to be brave. We're smart, we have the ideas, but people are not brave. We have to start showing up in governance spaces. I don't care that you are a pig farmer or that you are a graphic designer, but you have to be cognizant and conscious of governance processes, of national processes, and you have to participate. Whether you believe it works or it doesn't, that's another story, but people have to participate, particularly in reference with young people. We have to be brave. I've said this before, we have to be the generation of people that say not abduction, not rape, not torture, not insults, not being told you are being paid can stop me from raising my voice and speaking out. We have to be the generation that says, you know what, until all people are safe, until all people are well governed, until all people have medical care and can afford food, until that happens, we will not stop. We will not be deterred. And it starts with rallying with simple things like protecting our constitution, defending our constitution. Because at the point where we are at, we cannot negotiate with people who want to lead us into a totalitarian regime, and they want to actually legalize that through amending the constitution. So that's just what I'll say. We have to be that generation that says, come what may be, we will continue to speak our ideas. We will continue to mobilize similar minds around our ideas. We will continue to be pockets and units of people that are pulling each other towards one thing until we actually get to that thing. And that thing has to be hinged upon making sure that all people must be safe and well governed. If anyone in our community, in a society, is not safe and well governed, it means that none of us are.
Doc?
We only have one country. And this country, between the Zambes and the Limpopo, is called Zimbabwe. We love it, we like it, and my message to the ruling party is that its role is to protect the security of its citizens. And so what we see in the case of Obo Chingono, what we see in the case of Jacob Ngarivume, even if citizens, if the state feels that it is case, the due processes of the law must prevail. Citizens must not feel that there is no law and that the courts are not there. This government must be a government of laws. And this ruling class must be a ruling class with the ruling ideas. And to my fellow citizens, in our democratic struggles, to have democratic norm compliance, we must never be seduced into violence, because being violent is what the system and the regime is competent in. It is a trap. Let's be peaceful, let's be non-violent, but democratically resist, democratically speak out, democratically confront the government about the questions of the day, which is a livelihood person.
Thank you very much. I want to thank you. I had a wonderful panel this evening. Amazing ideas and amazing insights that have come through. We are also at Heart and Soul TV and Radio, the platform of sharing ideas, the platform of talking to the nation. We are the heart and soul of Zimbabwe, and we say, come as you are, come with your ideas, and let the nation engage. And this is what we bring to you, the ideas. This program was brought to you with Heart and Soul TV and Radio in partnership with Contract Vekumashingo Zvinonzi Wezhira Wezhive Wezhara. We want to thank you very much.
No, we are not Wezhara.
We want to thank you. We want to thank you so very much for joining us and for supporting us at Heart and Soul TV and Radio. And this is the situation right now with me, Dara Blessed Mhlanga, Dara Bazose, Dara Revanvese, Tichiti Joli. Thank you very much. Don't forget to follow us or like our pages on Twitter. We are on HSTV News, and on Facebook we are on HSTV Zim, and on our website it is hstv.co.zw. Follow us, like us, and we continue to bring you an alternative to the information, an alternative, and we talk to you. We talk to the nation. You talk to us. Thank you very much, and good evening.